How would you describe yourself, your music, and what you do to create that music and the process behind there?
Yeah. So as far as creating music, I guess you could say I'm a little newer to songwriting. I've only done it, I think maybe since, well, it feels new still, but like I think my first song I wrote was in like 2019, and then I didn't really write for a while. And I think I really kind of just like dove into it recently. Um, I am a very honest, very raw, emotional artist. I think that's like my goal with any piece of music that I write, but also perform, is I want you to see my heart on the outside. And I want to be able to show that in a way that's not just talking about it, but singing about it. Um, I definitely prefer like your more, singer-songwriter, storyteller type songs. Just because I think something my mom always told me growing up was be the song, tell a story. There's always a story behind every song, and the songs that I write, or at least the ones that I've released, are very personal to me. There are stories of hardships in my life, um, and they're just. I think it's a way to just kind of express what you're feeling. I'm not really the type of writer that writes every single day. It's more so just when I get an idea or when I get a thought, um, and seeing what comes to mind with that.
What kind of like inspires you to start writing your songs? Like, is it a certain moment? I mean, I'm sure it's gonna depend on the song, but like, is it a certain moment in life or
Mm.
um, some just feeling or something?
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends on the song for sure. A lot of it has just come from experiences, like from a past relationship, or a song that I um, most recently released was about my mom, who went through brain surgery when I was younger. And just kind of, I surprised her with the song actually. It was like one of the first official writes I had in Nashville, and I had no idea what I wanted to write about. And we were just kind of like talking about like one of the hardest things I'd ever been through in my life. And so I shared that story, and I got really emotional. And like I went into this write not knowing what to talk about at all. I didn't know what I wanted to write about. I have a hard time like just pulling ideas out of nowhere. I do think it does have to stem from an emotion or a certain situation that I'm in. At least for me, when it comes to writing songs for myself. But that song in particular, they just kind of asked me the right questions. I think I prefer to start through conversation because I think it's a lot more honest. You're not really thinking of lyrics or writing a song, but you're just being open. And so they had asked me what was one of the hardest things you'd ever been through. And I was just talking about my mom and being so young at the time that that happened, and not knowing, if my mom was going to live or not through this brain surgery. And I think like the thing that stood out to me most, and I guess what I wanted the song to be shaped as, was just like, this is how I see my mother, who has been the strongest person in my life. And this is what you've overcome. And I surprised her with this song so that she could view herself the way that I see her, and that she knew that she wasn't alone. And it's called Survivor. So that one is really just a message to my mom saying, like, whatever you're going through, I'm there with you. Like, you are one of my definitions of strength. And so that one was specifically from my mom, but definitely came to me very unexpected. But I would say, to short answer your question, um, I think they definitely come from conversations, because I feel, like I said, it's a lot easier for me to just talk than to think of a specific lyric.
Who would you say have been kind of your biggest musical influences?
I think as far as genre wise, I've always loved Adele. Very emotive artist. And I think I tend to gravitate more towards tones that are just kind of different. And Adele is just like a very deep tone that I resonate with. I'm trying to think of who else I listen to. My mom obviously has been an influence. I just grew up watching her sing my entire life, and she's done all different types of music. So she's done like Motown and rock, and I grew up watching her lead worship in church. She's never really tapped into songwriting, but she's just always, I know she's always loved music, and I think that's what started my love for music. So watching her do that, I think inspired me to want to kind of follow that same path. But yeah, Adele has always been one for me. Um, I love a lot of Olivia Rodrigo stuff. again, it's that storyteller vibe that I'm really here for. Lately, I've been getting into a lot of more like acoustic style instead of these like big produced songs. I love something really raw and vulnerable and honest that's very simple, that doesn't need much, to where you can really focus on the lyrics. So like Lizzie McAlpine is one, or some smaller artists like Abby Pallage. I love her music. Um, I love lyrics that make you think. And so I think as far as influences, I've definitely started to listen a lot more to artists that are more writers than they are performers.
We did a little bit of research and we saw that you were on The Voice. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that time and like maybe a favorite memory from that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 16 at the time that I was on the show, and it was actually the fourth time that I had tried out. I tried out when I was 15, my first ever like big audition. I mean, I grew up doing theater, and so I was used to auditions, but this was for a national television show, so there was a lot more pressure on it. And I didn't know it was a cappella, and I went in first time, and I like started in the wrong key. It was too low for me, so it was definitely an interesting experience. But my parents have always raised me to not, take no for an answer, or at least not let that defeat you. And so I tried out again, and I got further every time. And then the fourth time was during COVID. I was a sophomore in high school, which is crazy to think about. Um, but yeah, I auditioned as like an online audition, and I made it on, and I got to spend 3 months out there. It was like a month for blinds, and then fortunately, I was able to pass through the battles and made it my way to the knockouts. And honestly, the best part of that whole show, I mean, it was so fun, like doing wardrobe and playing with some of the most talented musicians I've ever played with, and just getting to see what, TV shows look like behind the scenes. But honestly, I feel like our season in particular just had something really special. I feel like we were a really close group, and I honestly think COVID had something to do with that because we couldn't go and gallivant around LA like a lot of the other seasons. We were stuck in this hotel together, and so when we weren't filming or when we weren't on set, it was full of Bible studies and just jam sessions, and everybody had a guitar, and we were all just singing, and it never felt like a competition. And we were all just genuinely there to support each other and just to be able to experience something. I think I learned a lot about myself as an artist, and I guess what I was capable of, and setting myself to a goal and being able to work towards that. Um, if you want a specific memory, I'm trying to think. Our last night before knockouts, or after knockouts happened, everybody was going home the next day. We broke curfew. There was like an 11 p.m. night curfew, and we were all up till like 2 o'clock in the morning, just sitting in the hallway and goofing around. We had guitars. We were singing together, even though we weren't supposed to. And we just spent so much time in community with one another. And these are some of like the closest people in my life that I have. It's one of the reasons why I moved to Nashville, is just because a lot of them are in Nashville. And they've just, they've taught me so much about music from their experiences. And now I get to just kind of be there and share that with them. But that, like last night, it was so heartbreaking, but it was so bittersweet. It's just like I had to leave and I wasn't coming back. Um, but I think a part of me was okay with that because of what I got to take with me was all of these people that I had met.
That's really cool. I I'm more in the world of sports here at BW, and so I recently you talked about how you get to see behind the scenes of like TV and all that, and that really, I mean, I got to see behind the scenes of the U.S. Open at for golf, and that just like it blew my mind how much like they put together for golf, and I'm sure they put together a lot more for like a studio and broadcast TV. And so, can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like, was that really cool? Did you learn stuff about the behind the scenes broadcast stuff for that?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I don't think we got as like hands-on and interactive as most seasons did just because we were a part of the COVID season. But they would send out like a schedule every night, and I like honestly don't know how they manage all, like it was like 40 artists, um and just all of the different schedules and time frames and things like that. But they're very very like on the book with things, like you got to be here at this time. And I was only on set like a couple times. And we did like a lot of interviews, and they had like all of these different like video angles set up. So they'd have like a couch to interview me and my mom, and then they had like us, posing with the trophy and stuff. And it's just, I guess, stuff that you never really think about when they put together a TV show because you only see the final product. And so seeing like how many hands are actually a part of this entire show is absolutely insane. Wardrobe itself was probably one of the most fun things I got to experience. And like we got to put together these like style boards that just kind of gave them an idea as to how we wanted to dress. And they had racks and racks and racks of clothing. And so that was really fun. Band rehearsals, you would drive to like another location and we'd have to like wait outside for a couple minutes and then went in, and it was just a super casual but quick like rehearsal. They're very professional, but also they're real people, and so we got to have fun and just experience that. I'm trying to think of what else we did. Um, Photo shoots were really fun too. And just like those promo shots. I think personally though, as far as like behind the scenes, I really loved the interviews the most. They had, I think, like two or three like interview rooms, and they had this one room that was like the black box interview room. It was just like very dark. You couldn't see nothing around you. And I think that's the one where they asked all of the emotional, like, what's your story questions. And they really dig at you for that stuff. But I mean, they're very good at their job as far as getting you to tell your story.
That's really cool. And I'm gonna go a little bit off of it, kind of expanding your story.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your upcoming EP?
Yeah, so this is actually something I'm really excited for. So it's a part of Songhouse, and I guess a little backstory as to how I got involved with Songhouse. Um, I got invited to play around at the local in Nashville, and it was like a voice reunion round. So it was a bunch of people that had been on The Voice or American Idol, things like that. And my friend Colby and I played, and my friend Emma Caroline played, and she had been a part of Songhouse. So a lot of her Songhouse friends came. And after the show, TJ, who is like my Songhouse bestie, I love TJ. Um, TJ came up to me and invited me to Songhouse, and I've been a part of it since. I think I've been there for 2 years, maybe. Um, but yeah, I got started with that, and I've attended so many rites of Songhouse and written so many beautiful songs. And Tyler, who runs Songhouse, just reached out to me and asked, hey, I really want to kind of get together with a couple artists and just have a lot more of like an intentional um, write and just come to the farm, which is one of our filming locations, and we'll talk, figure out what you want to write about. And so I went and I told them, okay, I need TJ there because TJ is my right hand man when it comes to writing. Um, and yeah, we went to the farm and we wrote this song called Make It Make Sense. And again, always starts in conversation for me. And we were just talking about, what's going through your mind. And it's like, I don't really know. They really have to dig to get, me to start talking. But I think that song just stemmed from not really knowing what I'm doing with my life and like questioning why so many things happen and we don't know, and wanting it to make sense. Um, I think the song is just a very like honest song. I think it's a position that we all seem to find ourselves in, just wanting to find peace and wanting to find an answer for everything, even though that's impossible. And then the second song for the EP, we were either going to just write a brand new one or pick from one that I had written in the past. And we ended up going with one I did in the past at a previous Songhouse camp, where they, had asked me what's been on your heart, and I was in a really, really tough spot. As far as just, I was exhausted. I was getting sick all the time. I was just running myself dry. And it was literally like 30 minutes. We just had to write this hook. And so we wrote this song called Empty Cup, which speaks for itself. I was pouring into everybody else and not filling myself up with the right things that I needed to. And you can't pour from an empty cup. And so, because of that, I had to take on all of the effects of that. And I was just exhausted. I wasn't finding joy in work anymore. I wasn't finding joy in people anymore. And I just felt so defeated. And I got really emotional during that, right? I remember. And so when Tyler was like, "Hey, we want a second song for this EP. What do you got?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I really love the song that we started. I would love to finish that one." And so we did that. And I'm really, really glad. I'm really proud of how this one turned out a lot. Um, I think just because that one in particular came from a very personal moment for me. And then as far as the third song, I think we're still figuring that out, to be honest. It's still a work in progress, but I'm just really excited for the opportunity to work with some really, really talented artists who I'm very comfortable with and don't mind, sharing very just personal parts of my life with. Yeah.
You like to be very raw with your music. Even if it takes you a second to open up with people, sharing these parts of yourself with the world is an incredibly vulnerable process.
Yeah.
What would you say that it takes for an artist to be authentically themselves, even on the world stage? Do you have to hide parts of yourself?
I don't think so. I mean, who wants something fake? You know? I mean, I have always just kind of been a very open person. Um, and especially with like social media too, I feel like social media, we present the best parts of ourselves. Which I mean, it's great to see, how you're thriving and things like that, but I think it's also human for us to not be okay. And I think the more people are seen, like I'm not alone in this, I think it's easier for them to see that there's something brighter on the other side. And so I guess with my music, I talk about, the tough moments that I have, but then you look at the life that I'm living and living fully and you see both ends of that, like with my mom, for example, she's come out on the other side of it, and I lived in that spot for a moment and then it's just turned into something greater. And like past relationships or just complaints that I have in a song, it's just like I'm able to be honest and still live a life worth living, if that makes sense. I'm an open book. It's very easy for me to be vulnerable because I have nothing to hide. I'm not ashamed of who I am or the things I struggle with.
So, kind of going off of that a little bit, how do you balance like marketing yourself and marketing your music and still staying authentic to you? I mean, do you change anything about marketing or
I think I'm starting to dabble a lot more into marketing. Now it's still a learning process for me. Um, and as far as balancing it with my life, I try and just make content when I can. But it's not easy. I don't know how all of these influencers do it. Kudos to them. But I honestly just try and find time, and I don't really do this big old production when it comes to marketing myself. I'm just I like to let the lyrics speak for themselves. I don't want to put too much into a song and take away from that itself and the emotion behind it. And so it's simple as, hey, I wrote this song. This is what it's about. It's very personal to me because I feel like honesty um, and storytelling and just being personal is what can really sell a song. I don't know if that clarifies it, but that's just how it is for me, and how I've marketed with things in the past. Like, I just find myself in a moment where I'm upset and talk about it, or if I'm happy and talk about it.
Well, it's perfect that you're talking about speaking your truth because we want to ask you a little bit about what our theme this year means to you. And it is specifically about listening to the people and what they have to say.
Mhm.
So, our theme again this year is tune into the people. When you hear that phrase, what does it make you think? What does it make you feel? What does it mean to you?
I think for tuning into the people, and I think as artists, it's very easy to write for other people. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Songhouse is that it's not necessarily focusing on what everybody else needs, but it's focusing on what you want to say. But then the beautiful thing about that is being able to share that with people and finding so many people that relate to that same thing, that tune in to what you're feeling. I think it's just, I hear tune into the people and I just think connection, other people feeling seen and relating with the same things that you're feeling. And it's healing for them in a way. And I think that's my initiative with music is for somebody to find healing in the music that I make.
what role, kind of jumping off of that a bit, what role do you think radio, and ultimately, I also want to put in there college radio,
Mhm.
plays in the current music industry landscape?
Yeah, I love the radio. I grew up listening to the radio. I think one of the special things about radio is I feel like it's always kind of been like a milestone, especially for artists too. Um, I mean, it's a great marketing tool, but I also think it kind of pushes you to listen to things that you don't normally like. You would go to your Spotify playlist and pull up. You know, you get to hear all of these different artists, and just kind of hear a different variety of music that you wouldn't necessarily like think to go to. Um, Trying to think. Um, I don't know, I think it can be a lot more personal in a sense, at least like when I've had my music shared on like local radio stations. Um, you know, they get to talk about the song and just kind of share the story behind it. So it's not just listening to it, but listening to what the artist has to say about it too. And I think that's just a beautiful thing about the radio. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much.